Hey people, John here from Fast Films, and today we're going through a 2021 drama romance movie called Benedetta. The movie starts by showing the Carlini couple taking their young daughter, Benedetta, to Prescia to take the veil. They stop by a Virgin Mary's statue to pray. Minutes later, a group of soldiers arrives and teases them. They leave after a holy threat from Benedetta. Upon arriving, Sir Felicita, the reverend nun, and Benedetta's father agree upon a certain and he leaves afterward. Later that day, Benedetta gets dressed as a recruit in the convent. Afterward, she is shown to her room. During the night, Benedetta wakes up to pray in front of the Virgin Mary's statue, and during her prayers, the statue falls on her. The older nuns come to her rescue and they are amazed by how she didn't get crushed by the statue. Fast forward to 18 years later. Benedetta is acting a play about the life of Jesus to the congregation and her parents are amongst the audience. She suddenly falls into a short trance about Jesus, but she regains consciousness to herself shortly afterward. Up next, the priest and nuns are having a meal at the big dining table. Benedetta's parents are also present. Her mother then asks her why she moved her legs during the play because she was supposed to act dead. She then tells her mother that she saw Jesus and she claims to be his bride. Soon afterward, a young lady, Bartolomea, breaks into the convent screaming that she wants to be a nun. Her father chases after her and tries to drag her away, but Benedetta's parents volunteer to pay her dowry so she can be a nun. Later that night, Bartolomea makes use of the bathroom under the guidance of Benedetta. Shortly after, she goes to take a shit where Benedetta saw a scar on her thigh. Bartolomea then tells Benedetta that her father always makes love to her and that was the reason she ran away. Benedetta then compliments her beauty. As the two draws close to each other, Christina, Felicita's daughter, comes into the toilet and startles them. The duo leaves immediately and Benedetta informs Bartolomea that Christina spies for her mother. Bartolomea pecks Benedetta on her lips to greet her good night and she leaves. Benedetta prays to Virgin for guidance afterward. Up next, during a hymn session, Bartolomea comes behind Benedetta and touches her romantically. This puts Benedetta in a trance where she is attacked by snakes, but Jesus comes to her rescue and terminates the snake. Upon returning to her conscious self, she finds the other nuns staring at her weird posture. Later that day, Benedetta goes to see the Reverend Father. She tells him that she has seen Jesus, but he tells her that only suffering draws them close to God. The next day, while the nuns work, Bartolomea accidentally knocks some bobbins of silk into a boiling pot. Benedetta forces her to take them out and Bartolomea is surprised by the sudden change in Benedetta's behavior. Afterward, Benedetta is called to the Reverend Nun's office and she is scolded. Felicita informs her that she will not eat bread for a week and she will be the one to change Sister Jacopa's beddings for 2 weeks. Later that night, as she changes Jacopa's sheets, Jacopa confesses to Benedetta that she usually plays with herself romantically, and this gives Benedetta a tempting mind to try the act too. The next scene shows Benedetta screaming and struggling in pain and Felicita sends for the doctor immediately. Felicita orders the nuns to tie her down so she won't hurt herself. After the doctor's test, she informs Felicita that everything seems to be normal with Benedetta. Later that night, Bartolomea comes to peck Benedetta on the lips before going to sleep. The next day, Benedetta wakes up screaming from a nightmare where she is attacked by some men. Soon afterward, Felicita informs her that Bartolomea will be by her side to attend to anything she needs till she gets better. Benedetta then queries Bartolomea's intentions. After a quick chat, Benedetta apologizes for hurting Bartolomea and she blames it on the devil. Later on, Bartolomea gets back in the room and finds Benedetta working on some accounts and queries why she is not in bed. Benedetta tells her that she is trying to be useful again. During the night, Benedetta gets into a trance and sees Jesus on the cross. He tells her to take off her clothes and move over to him on the cross. She then feels tremendous pain and this knocks her back to her conscious state. However, there is a physical scar on her hands and legs mimicking Jesus' crucifixion after she regains consciousness. The following morning, Benedetta informs Felicita about the occurrence, but Felicita doubts the genuinity of the events because Benedetta was sleeping and not praying. Later that day, the provost and his investigator arrive to confirm if it is true. Felicita tries to persuade them that the occurrence is not a miracle because the wound on Jesus doesn't appear on her head. Just then, Benedetta, who is praying in front of the Virgin Mary's statue, falls and screams. When Felicita and the provost get there, they can see wound marks on her head and she speaks in a very unusual voice before losing consciousness. Felicita, who remains doubtful, gets scolded by the provost. Soon afterward, people start bringing gifts to the front of the convent so that Benedetta can bless them. Christina and her mother discuss in her office the situation at hand. Benedetta gets into another trance during the night and this time, she makes Bartolomea touch her romantically. Up next, Benedetta is installed as the new Reverend Mother in the convent. Christina protests but her mother rebuffs her. Moments later, she packs her belongings to the Reverend Mother's room. Just then, a report comes to Benedetta that Jacopa has fallen ill and this might be her last day. She tells Felicita and Christina to watch over Jacopa till she passes. That night, Christina goes to the Reverend Father to inform him that Benedetta is a fake and she tells him that she has proof. Now in Benedetta's room, she and Bartolomea make out with each other passionately. The following day, while at the dining table, the Reverend Father calls out Christina to give her proof that Benedetta is a fake. After explaining herself, she calls on her mother to bear witness but Felicita denies her. Benedetta and the Reverend Father then pass out judgment on her. Later that day, when Benedetta gets to her room, she is presented with a personal toy by Bartolomea. While the two make love to each other, a pair of eyes watch them through a hole in the wall. Shortly after, a comet moves over the convent. While the nuns are outside watching the comet, Christina jumps from the rooftop to her death. Benedetta moves over to her body to touch her but Felicita pushes her away and curses her. Later that night, Felicita sneaks out of the convent and makes her way to Florence to see the nuncio. In her room, Benedetta plays with herself while looking at Bartolomea. Just then, she falls into a trance and says, "The sisters must dig a grave." The following day, Felicita arrives in Florence and tells the nuncio everything going on. He tells Felicita that if he finds out that Benedetta is fake, she will burn at the stake but otherwise, Felicitation will suffer the consequences. Now in Brescia, Benedetta and the convent pray in front of a Jesus statue. Benedetta tells them that the comet is a sign from the Lord and that he is there to protect them. Afterward, Benedetta tells the soldiers to lock the city gates and let no one enter. As she walks inside, she collapses and falls unconscious. The following day, Nunzio and Felicita arrive in Brescia. They are informed at the gate that Benedetta has passed away. After a quick argument, the soldiers let them into the city. Moments later, the nuncio enters the convent and starts the funeral rites for Benedetta when she suddenly wakes up. She reveals that she was in heaven at peace before Jesus returns her to life so she can relay a message to the people. Benedetta claims that everyone is about to die from the plague unless they keep her alive. However, the nuncio tells her that her trial will start tomorrow on the charges of blasphemy. Later on, the guard says there is no toy in Benedetta's room. Up next, at Benedetta's trial, Bartolomea is called to the front. The nuncio then asks Felicita to tell the audience what she witnessed. After explaining how the events happened, the nuncio passes the Bartolomea and Benedetta will burn at the stake. He urges Bartolomea to confess so as to save her but she claims there is nothing to confess. Moments later, they tie Bartolomea down and tell her to confess or else severe physical pain will be inflicted on her. After she refuses to talk, they proceed. Meanwhile, Felicita coughs out ichor in her room. In the next scene, Benedetta goes to Nuncio's room. The duo is having a discussion when Bartolomea is brought into the room. She tells Benedetta that she is not ready to suffer for her anymore and brings out the hidden toy as proof for the nuncio. Just then, Benedetta goes into a wild mode and collects the toy from the nuncio. She starts speaking weirdly but the guards drag her away. Moments later, the nuncio learns of Felicita's illness and he gets scared. Afterward, Bartolomea is expelled from the convent. Later on, as the nuncio prepares Benedetta's sentence, he starts to feel the illness symptoms too. Up next, Benedetta asks to go and see Felicita. Upon arriving at her isolation room, Benedetta whispers something in her ears. Shortly afterward, Benedetta is being transported to the stake but the people protest and curse the nuncio. At the stake, the nuncio tells her that if she confesses, he will show her mercy by only hanging her without her going through the suffering of burning. Just then, Benedetta screams and stretches out her hands revealing the holes in them. She tells the crowd that death is upon them. At that instant, Felicitation comes outside and opens her clothes so the people can see her diseased body. Felicita tells them that the nuncio has brought the plague to Brescia. However, the nuncio orders Benedetta to be burned at the stake. The crowd goes wild and goes after the soldiers and the nuncio. While Bartolomea is untying Benedetta at the stake, she finds a shard of glass that she used in making a hole in her hands. Just then, Felicita walks into the burning fire. During the commotion, Bartolomea and Benedetta run away together. The following morning, Benedetta says she wants to go back to the convention but Bartolomea argues with her. The movie comes to an end as Benedetta makes her way to the convent. Thanks for watching, guys.